Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Patterson Board of Adjustment meeting. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The notice requirement of the open public meeting law has been satisfied with respect to this meeting, specifying the time, date, and location included in the annual notice adopted at the reorganization meeting of the board filed with the clerk of the city of Patterson, posted in City Hall and mailed to at least 2 newspapers in accordance with the provisions of the law. Roll. I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Vega.
Maggie, you want me to run the roll call?
Present.
Want me to run the roll call?
Chairman.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Oh, okay, you're doing it?
Yeah,
The chairman, this mic is not working. So
okay.
Here.
Commissioner Arenas.
Present.
Commissioner Runallo.
Present.
Commissioner Furman.
Present.
Commissioner Pareto.
Baralt. Present.
All right. Commissioner Watson.
Commissioner Watkins is present.
Okay. Commissioner Roheen.
Present.
And I'm present. The agenda.
The agenda for tonight's meeting is as follows. Fortress Holdings, LLC, carried from 19 August 2021 for the property known as 322 through 324 Berkshire Avenue, block number 1218, lot 18. An application to use a parking lot to support the principal use of a banquet catering hall with restaurant use located at 555 Preakness Avenue in Totowa, New Jersey. The applicant proposes to place 40 parking spaces to be accessed only by valet or employees of the banquet catering hall with restaurant use. No patron will be permitted to access same. Of the 40 spaces proposed for the parking lot, approximately 17 and a half spaces are located within the geographic confines of the city of Paterson as the municipal boundary line intersects the property. No direct access to or from Berkshire Avenue in Patterson is proposed. This portion of the property is proposed to be utilized as additional parking when and if needed for the banquet catering hall with restaurant use. Use bulk site plan R1 zone. Item number 2, adoption of the minutes. Item number 3, adoption of resolutions.
Is the applicant present? Are there any objectors or interesting?
Mr. Rush, can you please put your here for the applicant, please put your name
Okay, yeah.
on the record?
Name is William Rush. I'm representing the applicant Fortress Holdings, LLC. I've taken over this file from Mark Semero, who was prior counsel and was here when this matter was called in August.
Thank you. Are there any interested parties or objectors?
Good evening. My name is Matthew Earl. I'm an attorney of the law firm Cates, Nussman, Ellis, Farhi, and Earl, located in Hackensack, New Jersey. We're here on behalf of objectors David Dennis, Bernadine Battle, Marisol Nunez, and Francisco Beltre, Natalie Peralta, Verna Mitchell, Dennis Quaylar, Donna Goldburn, Emin Mohammed, Jim Durkin, Lionel Mendoza, and Joanne Aites. And I don't know if you need their addresses or not, but that's
What
our
I
group.
do need is your name and address for the record.
Yes, Matthew Earl, E-A-R-L-E. Again, the law firm Cates, Nussman, Ellis, Farhi, and Earl, 190 Moore Street, Suite 306, Hackensack, New Jersey. Forgot my zip code here. 07601.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can proceed.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. As I said, my name is William Rush, and I represent the applicant here, Fortress Holdings, LLC.
Yeah.
Before I get started, I would like to thank the board for hearing us tonight on this special meeting. This application is the last step in what's been a very long process for my client, and we are very thankful that you're able to hear us tonight, and we're grateful to be here, and we look forward to proceeding on this matter to conclusion this evening. So with that being said, this application in front of you tonight, as was read in the agenda tonight, pertains to 322, 324 Berkshire Avenue. It's block 1218, lot 18, and it is in your R1 zone. Before I get into the relief that the applicant will be looking for tonight, I think it is rather appropriate to discuss the nature of this application. The lot in question, lot 18, is rather unique in the fact that it is bisected by the municipal boundary line that separates the city of Patterson and the borough of Totowa. Further, the application is unique is because almost entirely the project for this development has taken place in the borough of Totowa and will be conducted in Totowa. This application is strictly for a parking lot that will serve as a ancillary or accessory more or less rollover type of parking that will be accessed only by valet parking only. There'll be no clients or no guests of the catering banquet hall permitted into the parking lot. It will be strictly from valet parking. Also, again, this lot is rather unique because all the catering hall has been approved in Totowa. We're here simply for the fact that we're looking for a certain amount of parking in the city of Patterson. In fact, this lot will hold only 40 parking spaces, 17 and a half of which actually lie in the city of Patterson. So essentially tonight, this is an application for 17 and a half parking spaces in the city of Patterson on what is an undersized, undeveloped lot that borders, although it's in your R1 zone, borders an industrial section in the borough of Totowa. With that being said, because we are in an R1 zone, there are certain variances we're going to be requesting tonight, one of which is going to be a D variance, and it's a D1 use variance, and we're requesting that variance because obviously we're in a single-family residential zone, and we're looking for a parking lot that is associated with office, restaurant, and banquet hall. We're also going to be looking for 5 bulk variances or C variances, one for max lot coverage, which is C variance. We're going to be looking for minimum lot width, minimum lot area, a front yard fence height, and for parking stall size. Those will be the 5 C variances that we're looking for. I have 2 witnesses that I intend to call tonight, our engineer and our planner. But before I get into our witnesses, I would like to clarify a point that my direct questioning and the testimony that our witnesses are going to give tonight is more or less going to be strictly limited to the application in front of this board tonight. We want to stick with understand that the idea that, yes, we understand there's been major development that's been approved in Totowa, but the application before this board is strictly for the 17 and a half parking spots, and we want to limit that application, we want to limit our testimony to this application alone. If the board obviously has any questions with regards to what transpired in Totowa, we will do our best to accommodate those questions and provide the information, but we would like to keep the focus strictly on this application in front of the board this evening. With that being said, our 2 witnesses tonight are Matt Clark of MCB Engineering, who's going to be doing the engineering testimony tonight, and Steve Lyden of Burgess Associates, who will be providing planning testimony tonight.
Mr. Rush, is there someone from Fortress Holding here as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
in case, because there are,
Yeah, the
I have a
applicant-
few questions for someone representing the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
I wasn't planning on calling him directly, but the applicant's available if the board does have questions for the applicant, yes.
Yeah, I had a few, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so with that being said, I would like to first call our first witness, Matt Clark.
Yes, I do. Matthew, and it's Clark, C-L-A-R-K.
Now, Mr. Clark, would you provide for the board the benefit of your educational and work experience?
Yes. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in civil engineering from NJIT. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have been since 1996. Been qualified as an expert in civil engineering in New Jersey over a few hundred times, including I've been previously qualified in front of this board. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, if you could, just give an overview of this application tonight for the board.
Sure. Between yourself and the agenda was read in, it really gave a good understanding of where.
To the mic, or as close as you can.
Sure.
Mr. Clark. because
Sure.
Thank you.
So anyway, as we talked about, this is Lot 18 and Block 1218. I don't think the size of the lot was described, so what we're looking at is an exhibit, sheet 1 of 1. It's entitled Site Grading Plan / Utility Plan, and it's last revised 8/16/2021. And it's sheet, again, 1 of 1. And what this map represents is the lot that we're putting the accessory parking in. You can see here where I'm tracing my line, my finger over this line. This is the municipal boundary line. This lot, as described, is 4,848 square feet. The purpose of this lot, as stated, is just to be accessory parking. Parking for when the site is fully occupied and as-needed basis. It will only be used for valet and/or employee parking, again, when and if needed. It's not meant for any of the patrons that are coming to the facility. The site has access off of Berkshire here, 36.17 feet. As stated, that there will be no access to or from Berkshire to this property. The only way to access the portion of this parking lot will be through the Total War development. And let's see, then as far as the site engineering is concerned, as mentioned, there's 17 and a half parking stalls. In order to offset the grade differential, retaining walls are proposed down the sides of each corner of the lot, ranging anywhere from 6 inches up to about 14 feet at its highest point. Some of those walls have been constructed to date. On the site, other than some of the walls, there's nothing right now. It's currently undeveloped. As far as the lighting is concerned, there will be a series of traditional pole-mounted LED lights, approximately 14 foot high. The fixtures will be mounted. It's our opinion that the lighting design has been done in accordance with the local standards. Landscaping, what we're going to have is we have the parking lot, then we have curb, then we're going to put a row of 6 to 8 foot high arborvitaes at the time of planting, and then behind that, on top of the wall, will be a 6 foot high solid privacy fence to help buffer and decrease any headlight lights that may shine through, to help to be a good neighbor. As far as the drainage is concerned, to help offset, because there's nothing on the property today, to help offset the increase in the impervious area, there is an independent subsurface detention system to control the stormwater runoff. I'm just trying to see if there's any other items from my notes as far as the site engineering is concerned. Oh, the size of the stalls are 9 by 16. Again, it's for valet and for employees only, nothing for the client. So it's our opinion that the size of those stalls are more than adequate to support that type of parking use. Access, again, only through the Totowa site. The Berkshire Avenue, there will be no ingress or egress at that point. And again, we do have some variances, and our planner is here this evening who will be able to provide testimony in those support. That really is a summary of the site engineering.
Sir, I'm sorry to stop you here. Strange question. Did you ever work for Liechtenstein and Associates?
Yes, I did.
Okay, from Liechtenstein and Associates?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Commissioner Furman believes he may have a conflict and he's going to recuse himself tonight.
That was 20 years ago, a long time ago. And that was for bridge design, really. Nothing, really, it wasn't site engineering, it was bridges.
It's up to you, Commissioner Furman.
It's up to the chair.
Okay.
The scope of work that I performed at Liechtenstein was really structural design, bridge design. Oh, at least 20 years ago.
Mr. Rush, there would still be 7 commissioners if
Oh,
Commissioner
okay.
Furman recused himself.
That was a long time ago.
I'm sorry to interrupt the presentation. Commissioner Furman is just going to put a brief statement on the record, and then we will let you get back to it. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I'd also just like to say that Commissioner Furman did not have any advance notice of anything. He just happened to recognize you as you testified. Commissioner Furman, would you just please describe your previous work relationship with the witness?
I was able to recognize his face, and also I remember the first and last name. We used to work for the same company about 20 years ago, and that company was Liechtenstein Consulting Engineers.
Did the work that you were doing have anything to do with the application here tonight?
It has nothing to do with what we used to do in the past.
Okay. And do you believe that you could be fair and impartial here?
Sure,
Okay, in fairness to the applicant and any objectors, no?
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No problem. Really, again, that summed up, there's not much site engineering to it. We have some walls to offset the grades. We have the traditional lighting and landscaping. And again, we have an independent stormwater management system to control the stormwater for this portion of the property.
And Mr. Clark, just, obviously, you heard earlier, there are some citizen objectors here today. If you could just kind of briefly just summarize again the protective measures or the proactive measures that are being put in place to protect any nearby residents, as far as like the light spillage and any type of headlights, noise, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think the most important things for the adjacent property owners is for the lights. We will have shields, house side shields, that will help reduce any kind of glare onto their property. You can see that on not this plan, but the overall site plan. The landscaping, again, provides a nice buffer, which will be above the 6-foot-high fence, so that will continue to grow and provide some additional buffering. And then the solid PVC fence that will be on top of the wall will be a solid object that will eliminate any kind of headlights as the cars come down, so nothing will shine out onto the neighboring homes. I think those are the most important things as far as the neighbors are concerned.
And what about noise? Do you think that's?
I think both of those elements will help to attenuate some of the noise, yes.
And as you testified earlier, this is strictly for valet parking only, correct?
That's my understanding, correct?
There won't be any guests or any type of clients or customers using this lot, correct?
That's correct, correct.
And also, do you believe that drainage is appropriate for the site as it exists currently today? Do you think this is a reasonable solution?
Yes, I do.
I have no further questions of the witness. Prepared with the board, question the witness.
Gary?
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Clark, you alluded to some landscaping between the curb and the fence.
Correct.
What is the date on your plan?
August
8/16/21.
8/16/21. Now, this plan does not show the landscaping or the lighting. My understanding is that the full set of plans that were submitted to TOTOA was part of the package sent into Patterson. That represents the lighting and landscaping.
Okay, because sheet 1 of 1 doesn't show that row of arborvitaes that you alluded to.
No, it doesn't. As I mentioned, it's on the full set, the 15 set sheets.
Okay.
That went. If need be, if we do get approved in a condition, we can add those elements to this plan sheet. That's not a problem.
And what was the height you said that they were proposed at, the landscaping?
Day 1, 6 to 8 feet. So day 1, they'll be just a little bit above the 6-foot-high fence, and then they'll grow from there.
It won't be above the 6-foot-high fence because you're putting the fence on top of the wall, right?
Well, it's good, and the plant will be right behind it, so eventually it will find its way above and
Okay.
beyond.
So the grading on the other side of the wall is going to be close to the curb height, and the grading on the south side is the 4 feet that we're looking at.
Right, so you have the curb go up 6 inches, we'll plant the plants there, and then the fence will be on top of the wall. And since we're on the high end, the top of the wall will probably have a cap on it, and the fence will go up from there.
Yeah, perfect, okay.
Yep.
Now, the end of the property, I guess it's the easterly side of Berkshire, that's going to be closed off by a chain link fence that's going to be locked? Is that what is the intention?
Whatever the board, however the board wants us to lock it up, we'll lock it up. But that would be, there's a fence there now, we can lock can lock it up.
Okay, the fence may be in disrepair there now, so if that's the case, it has to be replaced, obviously.
I'm sure the client would you comply to repair the fence? Yes, the client, we'll fix the fence as needed.
Okay, and also, the wall that is on the southerly line of Lot 18, where the fence is going on top of,
Yes,
there seems to be some disrepair on that wall. I don't know if it was from Ida or just years, but is that going to be repaired so that there is not dirt and debris coming through or stone? Is that going to be repaired to?
yes, it will. Yes, it will.
That's all I have for the expert.
Thank you.
Any board commissioners have questions?
Commissioner Vega, I have a question. So I'm going to talk about Sherwood Avenue. I know this is not where the gates are, but 2 roads or 2 streets over.
Okay.
So there's a lot of dirt coming out of that. I know they built that wall, and you have dirt coming into that main road in Sherwood Avenue. What are you guys thinking of doing with that?
Well, if there is some erosion issues, maybe the sill fence got to be reestablished on our property, so I'll make sure, I'll mention this to the client, and he can get out there and, fix that up if there's some siltation coming off of our site.
Okay, so that's not going to be fenced in, it's just going to be dirt, or are you guys going to move the dirt back, or how's that going to work?
No, the owner could probably give you a better
Answer that.
I'm just saying, if there's construction issues going on where some siltation's exiting the site, then we'll just reestablish the sill fence. But as far as what's forecasted for there, he could probably give you a better answer.
Okay. Now, regarding the fence, so you're saying that the fence is going to be replaced? Is that?
On by Sherwood?
Yes,
I'll
no, Berkshire, I'm sorry, Berkshire.
Oh, wherever it's in disrepair, it seems like
Okay.
it probably will be replaced. I mean, it's
Yeah, the
in
fence is
disrepair.
pretty bad shape. And what type of fence would you install there if you had to replace it? If
If the board has a preference, we would entertain that.
Okay. No further questions.
Any other commissioner? Okay. Hear from the objector to the questions that the engineer. All right.
Yep. Maybe I'll keep it over towards you.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question. This is the parking lot, right, that you're proposing here? Where is the primary structure in relation to this parking lot?
It's off the page, it's up here.
And what elevation is that at, approximately?
I'd have to look back at the other plans.
But it's a significantly higher elevation than what's down here, right?
It is higher.
Right. And how do the cars get from, I assume you proposing they come from Totowa, however you say it,
Totowa.
and they come down the road down here, right?
Correct,
So they're going downhill,
correct.
and their headlights are pointed downhill towards the properties that are down here, correct?
Well, the headlights will shine, come down where the cars travel.
Right.
Right.
And so you're proposing a 6-foot fence? Is that what you said?
On top of the wall, yes.
On top of the, what's the total height going to be?
6 feet.
6 feet, right. And where are the trees going to be planted?
Between the back of the curb and the fence.
So is this north, this way?
Yes,
So they'll be on the north side?
the north side of the fence.
The north side of it. How high are the light poles going to be?
The fixtures are mounted at 14 feet.
14 feet. So there's going to be 14-foot lights. And where are they located on this little plan here?
It's not shown on this plan,
Uh-huh.
but as we testify to, if need be, we can add the lighting and landscaping to this plan to give a better illustration.
Well, can you point
The
out
light-
a
they'll-
few spots?
Sure, there'll be a light pole at this location, I assume here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe.
Okay. And where are the houses? This is Berkshire, right?
Correct.
Where are the houses in relation to this property? How far
I
away?
believe there's a dwelling right where I'm pointing.
It's right there. It's right next to it, right? That dwelling?
Correct.
Very close.
Yes,
And there's a dwelling over here, right? Across the street, there's a house here,
yes,
and there's houses going down, and then there's houses over here too, right?
that's my understanding, yes.
So you guys are proposing 14-foot lights in this parking lot, correct?
Correct?
And cars coming down the hill towards these houses. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What impact do you think the trees will have on the noise? Do trees block sound waves?
I'm not an expert in sound.
Okay. Let me ask you this. The lot will be impervious, correct?
The majority of the lot will be impervious.
Yes. And where does the stormwater run off to? Or where is it directed to?
The discharge point for the system here is in Berkshire.
So you're discharging the water into Berkshire Ave?
Correct.
Does that go into the municipal sewer system?
I believe so, yes.
The Patterson sewer system? What, let me ask you this question. When did this Totowa project start? Do you remember? Do you know?
I don't recall.
Were you involved in that, or was that another partner?
My partner was involved in the total application.
Would it be fair to say, does it seem true to you that it started in 2015?
Could have. I mean, the owner's here, and I believe there's going to be questions posed to him. At that time, you could ask him. He'll know.
Yeah, fair point.
We're just...
Right. And to be clear, one of the things we are arguing is that this is a self-created hardship. that
Could
there's
we
no need
please
for a
use the
variance.
mic, because we can't hear either one of you without the mic, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we are going to be arguing is that this is a self-created hardship, that this application started in 2015 in Totowa and expanded over 3 or 4 amendments to that application, which resulted in this need for additional parking, or this desire, I should say, for additional parking. So I think the history of the Totowa application, we're not going to get into all the matters that relate to the procedural aspects of it that have been raised in a lawsuit, but I think the fundamental basis of why they need this parking certainly is relevant to whether or not this board should grant a variance. So I just want to point that out as we proceed. I don't think this is the right witness for me to get into that too much because he wasn't around, didn't handle those aspects of it, so maybe the planner or the owner. But do you know when the subject lot, what is it, block 1218, lot 18, this is the one that's in Paterson, right? Do you know when that was originally added to any of your applications?
I'd ask the owner that question. Our role here is grading, drainage, lighting, landscape, fencing. As far as purchasing, when things happen, I would defer all that to the owner.
So the answer is you don't know the answer to that question?
Correct.
Your firm handled all these applications, right, before the zoning boards?
Correct.
But you personally have no knowledge of when this was added into your overall scheme?
Correct.
Okay. What is the change in elevation from Preakness Ave as it abuts the principal building in Totowa to the dead end of Berkshire Ave in Patterson?
I don't know this map does not represent the elevation up on Preakness, but I can tell you for the extent of this map, Berkshire, it's an elevation of, say, 214, 215, and as you go up to the, where we come in, to this parking lot, it's 222 is the elevation.
And how much is it up here in Totowa where the building is? Do you know how high that is?
It's higher, I don't know the number.
All right, and how many stories is the building?
I believe it's 7, the owner could answer that better than I could.
We don't have another microphone, we have to go back and forth like this on that?
I guess.
We do have a copy of a survey that says a proposed 4-story building.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
if it's 7, I don't know that, but.
Yeah, again, I would, the owner's here, he could speak to that. Our role, my role coming in is really focused on this lot alone. He is here tonight, the planner is too, and the planner was involved in all those applications in Totowa. He could answer that better than I could. Again, grading and drainage and,
Right.
the bland engineering things we do.
Have you been to the site?
Yes,
You've seen the structure?
yes, I have.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that it sits at a greatly higher elevation and sort of towers over the properties down here?
I wouldn't say that, it's higher. It's higher, I agree with it.
It's high.
It's higher.
Yeah. What would prevent, you've testified that the parking lot will only be used for what, valet parking?
Yes, that's my understanding, and as needed.
As needed for valets or as needed for any purpose?
Valet, valet.
What about employees?
I believe it could be used for employees as well, depending on the events at the site. This is purely as, if and when needed, not for every event. There may be a valet for other events on the property, but this is like an emergency area to park when the site's fully operational. And again, the owner, I think, will give you a better overall understanding of that.
Now, what is proposed here with the Berkshire Ave? Is there going to be a gate, a fence? What's going to be there?
Yeah, we just chatted. We're going to replace the fence if need be, repair it as a minimum, and whatever method of lock they want, we'll provide.
Would there be a gate there?
I believe there'll be a gate if the board...
There would have to be a gate, just for emergency access to the site if required.
So will be a gate, yes.
But the gate, this board is requesting that the gate is always locked, so that key would be with emergency services.
Right.
All right. You wouldn't be the right person to ask about how many parking spaces are needed for the Totowa site. That would be the planner. You don't have knowledge about that?
No,
The zoning requirements for the parking?
no. We're here tonight purely for this lot, and that's it.
No, I know that's what you guys are arguing, that you're here for this lot. My question to you is, well, let me ask you this question. What is the projected occupancy of this building?
I defer that to the owner.
I'm going to take this one question, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask that you ask council to refrain from going into the prior application. It's already been approved in Totowa. Here's strictly for the reason we're looking for this application alone. All this is extraneous and it really is prejudicial to the application.
I respectfully, I hope it is prejudicial, but in a legally appropriate way. You know, again, our whole argument, part of our argument is that this need for this parking is because they've overdeveloped the primary site. And, you know, why do they need this extra parking down here right next to these houses? That is the fundamental issue, and it's because of how they decided to develop the property. So all of that information is totally relevant.
I agree with the attorney. We're just here to discuss the parking tonight, whatever happened in Totowa, they granted the project already.
He's granted, the chairman is saying he agrees with Mr. Rush. That's the attorney that he was alluding to.
I got it. I would just take exception to that ruling, and I would note that, again, whether or not they meet the criteria needed to have a variance really does go back to how they decided to approach this original development. So I'm going to continue to ask my questions. They can be objected, and I will stop. But I feel like that goes right to the heart of this case. That's my view. That if you were to stop us from going into how this development came about and that type of thing, that will surely not give you the full picture as to whether or not you should be granting this variance.
This is not the time to retry the total application.
Yeah, you know,
No, I'm attempting to stop this application, not the total.
I would appreciate it if you would remove a little further back your exhibit, yes, sir. Because when you speak, it has to be one at a time. So if you would let him finish and you go to the microphone, because the court reporter cannot hear you. And I know I didn't hear you, so I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, well, I don't have any further questions for this witness.
Any other objector? Come to the mic, please. Give your name and address.
Mr. Commissioner Rahim has stepped out. Should we wait for him, sir? Because he is the vice chair. Thank you. We'll proceed once our vice chairman returns. Thank you.
just one minute.
See,
Hello, good evening. My name is Blanca Cabrera, and I'm actually the homeowner. Blanca Cabrera. Cabrera, Cabrera. I'm actually the homeowner of 318 Berkshire Avenue, which is the neighboring house right to the project. I've had my fair share of issues with the property owner, in which the original retainer wall was broken and they have left it there. And we've gone back and forth, and I've actually spoken to his lawyer previously, where they removed some of the debris that was left on my property, and they damaged my driveway. Also, with the fencing, I don't think they do a pretty good job in housing all the rocks and dirt that's there.
excuse me, ma'am, you can Do you have questions of the engineer?
For me, mostly is, I don't want it to become, what's it called? Like an active street. They say that they are gonna take out the retainer wall that's there, but how does that affect my property? Because we've gone back and forth with that, and the original retainer wall is currently in pieces, but half of it is still there. I did speak to Paul, the owner, and they were supposed to completely remove it before I installed my fences, but he told me to go F off. So I don't know how that's gonna affect the fences that I installed, that I paid $14,000 for.
As far as what's going on between you and the owner, I would suggest you continue to have those conversations. The board planner has asked us to make sure that we've, some of the damage from maybe Ida and some of the other storms to take care of that at this time as construction continues. Our main role is what's going to happen, post-construction, where there will be a nice new retaining wall, a privacy fence with vegetation behind it. As far as what's happening today, again, I would suggest you just continue to work with Paul, get those things resolved.
But nobody answered. That's why I came today, because, that was one of my main concerns, in which I was trying to see what was gonna happen with the retainer wall, and they never took care of the retainer wall.
Ma'am, do you live on the last house on the right-hand side on Berkshire? Yeah, that's going to be part of the resolution if the application is approved, that they have to repair that wall, so that there is no issues with any stone or block coming onto your property. Also,
I actually have videos of when the last hurricane that hit, all the rocks that flew onto my property and actually right by my car and stuff like that.
well,
So I don't know.
that is a circumstance of a hurricane, ma'am, so, that's not a everyday issue. I'm sure if it's a 100-year storm, it's supposed to happen once every 100 years.
Yeah.
So hopefully we don't get that for some time. But the wall that is on the plan now, which is behind you, is 4 feet off your property.
What do you mean?
It's 4 feet off your property. So,
The new one, but there's an
No.
older one which was smaller, which is like 2 or 3 feet off the ground.
yeah.
Which is destroyed.
No, that's the same wall that's there. The wall is on the survey and on the plan. That wall is 4 feet to their property, and it's 4 feet high.
See this line here, the shaded line? That's going to be the wall, and here's your property line. So we're offset.
The wall is 4 feet away from your property to begin with, and they have to repair that wall. On top of that, they're going to put a fence up and landscaping, and that wall has to be repaired. And if the board does approve it, it will be in the resolution stating that all those repairs have to be made to the standard of the city engineer, okay? So if there's any issues, the city engineer will come to your property and let the owner or the contractor know if they have to do additional work, if the application should be approved.
So I'm a little bit confused, because when I did my survey on my house, which I recently did it was only an inch off.
Well, the survey here, ma'am, has it 4 feet off, so I would ask you to check with your surveyor. Okay, whoever did your survey, say that you went to the meeting, and there was a survey there. This survey is prepared by Schwanreed Halls Associates. So they can call my office, I can give them the information for your surveyor to call them up, but it's clearly well off your property to begin with, and that's where the wall is staying and going to be repaired. They're not putting it closer to your property.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other objector for the engineer? If not, you can call your next witness, Mr. Rush.
Yes, the applicant would like to call its planner, Steve Leiden.
Even somebody who's not an objector,
Yeah.
just the general public order.
Yeah.
Good evening. Yes, I do. Stephen Leiden, Lydon. I'm employed by Burgess Associates in Westwood as a municipal planner.
And Mr. Leiden, would you also give the board the benefit of your educational and work experience?
Yes, I'm a Rutgers University alumni, although I rarely acknowledge that on Saturdays in the fall, especially last Saturday. After graduating Rutgers, I worked for the Bergen County Planning Board, then West Milford Township, and then became a planning director for Denville Township in Morris County. Then 20 years ago, I became an employee of Burgess Associates, and I have continued in that vein since. My license is current. I was issued a New Jersey planner's license in the late 1980s, and I have testified before boards such as this one, municipal courts, and Superior Court through the northern part of the state. I don't think I testified in front of the Patterson Board of Adjustment. I may have testified in front of the Planning Board 12 years ago or sometime, a long time ago.
We accept your credentials.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Loudon, would you give a brief description of the property from a planning perspective?
Sure. The most important thing in my regard is that it's unique in the sense that a municipal boundary line goes through the property, about half in Patterson, about half in Totowa. The portion in Totowa has already been the subject of a site plan approval, which also required variances, and the Totowa portion has been approved. This portion of the lot in Totowa has been approved for use as a paved overflow parking area. One of the conditions that we sought to have the Totowa board impose on the application, so I guess it's more of a stipulation, was that there'd be no access from Berkshire Avenue, including emergency access. The idea was that the development was in, by and large, Totowa, and Totowa should provide for emergency services if and when necessary. So the program here is to not have any access to the subject site from Berkshire Avenue. There is a
Mr.
driveway.
Lyden, I'm going to think that a lock gate with the access from the, for the police and for the fire department should be part of this application, only because if the fire department can't get, even if the total fire department, if they can't get to the building from the front for whatever reason, they need to get to the building from the back.
We have absolutely no objection to that at all.
Obviously, this is a Patterson application. If that's what this board requests, then we'll...
I would suggest that to the board, as long as there is no access, ingress, or egress with any other vehicle other than just emergency vehicles, I would suggest that to the commissioners, that that gate is just locked and like the fire department, police department have that access, that's it. I would suggest that, so that would be my proposal for the board to,
The applicant has no objection.
thank you.
The portion of Patterson is in the residential zone. It's the R1 zone. The proposed site plan. We seek to develop parking on the PQ. No access to parking from Berkshire Avenue. All access will be from Preakness Avenue in Totowa, then through the site. So and the parking area that's being proposed will only be used as overflow parking for the 17 or 16 parking spaces proposed in Patterson. And you've also heard that through testimony that the valet or employee parking will occur on this portion of the lot, and I believe that's important in justifying the smaller parking size. Normally, a parking stall size is 9 by 18 feet, 9 feet wide, 18 feet long. We're looking for smaller and narrower stalls, and we think they're appropriate because with valet parking, you don't have inexperienced people opening up doors, and usually it's only on the driver's side. So you can park a car closer on the passenger side of a car, and because they're valets, they can also tighten them up and park closer than the members of the general public can. So the fact that it's valet parking gets to the heart of the matter for the variance later on. We are seeking variances, and obviously, to be in front of the Board of Adjustment for something that's not a one or two family house, you need a use variance, and we're seeking one since a commercial parking lot is not permitted in this R1 zone. And I can see the court reporter that I'm talking too fast, so I will slow down. Parking, as I indicated, the stalls that we're proposing are 9 feet wide by 16 feet, as opposed to the 9 by 18. And then there's some heights of retaining walls and fence combinations. There is minimum lot width, minimum lot area, maximum lot coverage, and those are all recognizable as C variances. As this board knows, in order for this board to grant a D1 use variance, we need to show special reasons, and that means particular suitability, and it means carrying out a purpose of the municipal land use law. We are not claiming to be inherently beneficial. We also need to demonstrate the negative criteria, that there's no substantial detriment to the public good and no substantial impairment to the master plan. For the bulk variances, we can either go the C1 route, which means that there's a hardship associated with the property, usually due to topographic constraints. It can also be due to features on the site. And then for the C2, the benefits of the deviation go to the surrounding neighborhoods as opposed to the applicant. And again, there can't be any substantial detriment to the public good or to intent and purpose of the master plan or zoning ordinance. And we believe the applicant can meet these criteria. One of the reasons why a D1 variance can be sought and granted by a board is due to change conditions. And we think we have changed conditions here. And we think we have changed conditions for a number of reasons. First, part of the site has already been the recipient of a use variance and a site plan approval and has been authorized and approved as a paved parking lot. That raises the question, what do you do with the other half of the lot? And when I say the other half of the lot, we're talking about what Patterson would qualify and categorize as a non-conforming lot, both for lot area and lot frontage. The lot frontage is about 36, 35 feet. Your ordinance requires more than that. Your ordinance requires 5,000 square foot lot for development of a single-family house. This parcel does not have those sizes. So that's a change condition. There's going to be a parking lot on half of the lot, roughly, and the other half is, well, what do you do with it? The other thing that's a change condition is the Patterson construction official issued construction permits some time ago, I don't know when, for the construction of retaining walls on the portion of the property in Patterson. That also allows for the importation of fill. So the construction of walls and the importation of fill changes in a dramatic way the nature of the property. Not just the property that's in Totowa, but the nature of the property in Patterson has been affected by both those change conditions. The approval in Totowa and the building permits for the foundations and importation of fill. The other, and I don't know which town to put this in, which borough, which city, the other change condition is a condition that Totowa said, with the condition of that, it would be further amended by the idea of emergency service access, is that access to this parcel shouldn't be from Patterson. So that isolates this lot from the rest of the balance of the Patterson community. That's a big change condition. And I think those things alone would be basis for the grant of the requested use variance, especially as they affect the purposes of the municipal land use law. We believe that special reasons exist for granting the D1 use variance for this now orphaned lot, and they include to encourage municipal action to guide appropriate use of land. As I said, half of this lot is now approved, not yet built, approved for parking lot. What do you do with the rest of it? We believe that the fact that Patterson has issued construction permits isolating this lot from the balance of the community and preventing access from Patterson, it makes more sense to permit development consistent and compatible with the balance of the lot, parking. Another purpose of the municipal land use law is to provide for light, air, and open space. The only development will be paved parking. There'll be no diminution, if I got that right, this mask is tough, in the amount of air, light, and open space available to the neighbors. Why? There's no building. To ensure development of individual communities does not conflict with the development of neighboring municipalities. Approval of the approval of the use variance sought here in Patterson and ensuring that all access to and from this lot is from Preakness Avenue in Totowa means that the development of the property as proposed doesn't have a deleterious impact on Patterson, but if Patterson doesn't grant the requested use variance, it is suggested that the only access would be through Totowa, and that would be deleterious. So we believe that to ensure development of individual communities is not in conflict, this application should be approved. We also believe that providing sufficient space at appropriate locations for a variety of uses. Additional overflow parking on this lot adjacent to a parking lot on the other portion of the same lot is an appropriate use for this section of the property in Patterson. We believe this application also meets the necessary negative criteria as well. There's no substantial detriment to the public good if application is approved. Parking has already been approved on a portion of this lot. No access, except for maybe emergency services, will be permitted from Patterson, so no additional traffic will result on Berkshire Avenue. That's a plus for the community of Patterson. There's no substantial impairment to the intent of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. The relevant Patterson master plan goal is to plan for an appropriate mix of land use. And for this particular unique lot, we think that is to allow paving on this portion of the lot as has been approved on the other portion of the lot. The purpose of the Patterson, this mask is a thing, is to ensure orderly growth and development. This application to expand the approved parking lot to include the isolated portion located in Patterson achieves this orderly growth and development purpose. It is our belief, after being to the site, reviewing the ordinance, that the expanded parking lot will not adversely affect neighboring landowners. Turning attention to the bulk variances, and I'll be brief, lot area. We believe this is a C1 variance. The issue that created this lot is the municipal boundary line and the earlier approval in Totowa. So the lot area is about 40,000 square feet. That's under the 5,000 required. It would need the area if it were to be developed as a single-family home, which is no longer really relevant because of the construction permits issued in Patterson. But to allow for the parking, the additional parking that we're seeking, the lot area is appropriate because it would be contained and added to the portion of the property in Totowa. Lot width. Lot is below Patterson's standard for residential development. So that would be an adverse development, I think, if the board were to grant development of a parcel of this narrow width. But without access to Berkshire and all access from the other approved portion, it becomes a nullity almost. So that could be granted as a C2 basis. Parking stall size, I mentioned earlier, valet parking only, possibly employees. There won't be customers out there with 4 kids opening up all the doors. You can have smaller parking spaces when you have professionals parking vehicles. Maximum lot coverage. That standard was adopted for the R1 zone. It's not really relevant.
Mr. Leiden, not to interrupt you, there is no lot coverage variance. The Patterson Code only calls for lot coverage for structures only. There's no structure on this site proposed, so there is no lot coverage variance. Also, there is no lot area variance because the lot area is for construction of a 1- and 2-family home, not for an accessory use. So the C variances that I have listed are the parking stall size, which is 9 by 18, and you're proposing 9 by 16. And the front yard fence height maximum is 4 feet, and you're proposing 6. Those are the only 2 C variances that I have. The lot coverage is only for structures.
I stand corrected, and I will get to the front yard height variance. As you heard the testimony of the engineer, it varies for both safety reasons and for aesthetic reasons, and to minimize any impact on adjacent property owners, we are seeking to put a 6-foot-high fence. So at some areas, the total vertical change will be 6.5 feet. Towards the east, it'll get higher, but the fence is really to provide for safety, so people don't fall off the wall, and to provide more of a buffer. And then under those bases, you could grant it as a C1 or a C2. And with that, unless you have any more questions, Mr. Rush, I think that's the base of the majority of my testimony.
You covered all my questions. At this point, I'd like to go out to the board for questions.
Well, Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'm just going to, this is actually more for the board and for the residents. There is a New Jersey case law, and which is similar to this application. It was Stop and Shop versus the Board of Adjustment, 315 New Jersey Super, 427, reverse 162, NJ 418. This case was where there was a proposed shop right along a highway, a Stop and Shop, I'm sorry, in a commercial zone. And the parking lot in the rear was R2 zone. And the court ruled that it was permitted only because it was an accessory use to the principal use, which is almost the same that is being proposed tonight. So the court also ruled, and I'm just giving the synopsis of this case, that the owner of the lot suffers a hardship because of the split characteristic of the zone in the lot. So in this case, it's almost similar to the Stop and Shop case, where the principal use is already approved, and this is only an accessory use to that, where it's only going to be used when needed. So that is your hardship case really for you, but it's to assume the D1 variance can be granted.
I'm sorry, sir. Just for purposes of our record keeping, you had mentioned, I think you had mentioned something about emergency access on Berkshire. Did you mention anything about that, or?
The board did. The board did, Mark. I did, for the board.
Okay. So that was for fire and police? Or?
Yeah, just emergency vehicles. There was no traffic going through this lot other than emergency vehicles.
Okay, thanks.
That is all I have. Just the three variances are use, fence height, and for C variance, and the parking stall. Okay, thank you.
Any commissioners have questions of the planner?
Commissioner Vega, regarding the fence, Gary, you said, we should have at least 4 feet. They have 6. Is that a problem with the parking down? I mean, actually the homes around that area.
Well,
I'm concerned about lighting. I'm concerned about the height.
Well, I think it should be 6, Commissioner, because, first of all, and again, you're only talking about 16 cars, but when they do use that lot, the lights between the arborvitaes that are going to be 8 feet high and the fence, that'll make sure that the light doesn't shine on the resident's property, and it adds a little bit more privacy, and it also is a little bit of a buffer. There's not much noise to park a car and start a car.
And I agree to that. I thought it would be phenomenal, 8 feet instead of 6 or 4, 6, but.
8 would be, I feel 8 would be make it too commercial looking for the border of the residence. even though the arborvitae's are 8 feet, I would rather see the arborvitae's 8 feet or 10 feet instead of the fence. And I would suggest now that fence be a vinyl fence so that there's no
Yes,
light
something
or air
blocking,
going
yeah,
through.
lights.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
I agree with that. And that's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Watkins, hello, how you doing?
Good evening.
I understand that the property that you're building sits very high. Where you want to put the parking lot at, the lighting area, it's going to be facing the parking lot?
Yes, Commissioner, and as testified to by the engineer, there's two important things in my mind. One, there's only a few lights in the parking area, and you can achieve that by having 14-foot-high poles. Another key part of his testimony was that the lights are going to be LED. The benefit of LED lighting is in the old days, you bought a light fixture, and that's what you got. With LEDs, you can change illumination levels, you can change colors. They're very manageable, and they're very flexible. So you have a much better chance of providing the lights you want, which is a good thing, without overlighting the area that you don't want to light, which is a bad thing. The other thing that I thought was very important in his testimony is that these light fixtures are going to have house side shields on them. And that's just a little block. Light basically, goes in a line of sight. If you can't see the light fixture, you can't see the light. And so the house side shields will direct all the light to where the applicant wants it, into the parking lot, and not to the residential properties nearby. So that's going to, all those factors will mitigate light intrusion.
So just understand the question is, because that property is so huge, we have to concern ourselves with the Patterson residents as well up in that area. So it's not just Berkshire, you have other streets, and I'm afraid or I'm concerned about that highlighting coming down and invading their property and their life as well during the night. So we want to make sure that the Patterson residents aren't affected by the lights at all at night, okay? Because the property sits high, and I'm sure it's going to be a beautiful site, and I'm sure it's going to have lighting at night, but again, we don't want that lighting to affect Patterson. I really don't like the ideal of using that Berkshire street as an emergency, because the property is so huge that you guys have that you could find a way to get in and out if you have an emergency. But to use Berkshire and affect those residents there, I don't like the sound of that. So I'm sure we've seen properties that have walls all over the United States where there's no way that those people should be affected at all. And those are my concerns.
If I could just address the safety aspect of it with regard to the Berkshire access. I think the testimony has been, whatever this board prefers, the applicant will do with it. Mr. Paparazzi indicated that he wanted the emergency access. If the board does not want the emergency access from Berkshire, then we're willing to do what the board recommends at this point with regard to any access from Berkshire. However the board wants to handle that, we're open to the board's suggestion. With regard to the lighting, I don't know if Mr. Wyden is actually capable of testifying to the lighting that was, I'm sure, discussed at length at Totowa, but I can ask him.
I say that because I am a Patterson resident, and as Patterson residents sitting up here on this board, living here, we hear when things don't go right and people come and blame us for everything. So I must be concerned about
No,
the
I
residents.
understand that, and as I said, with regard to Berkshire, I think, we'll do whatever the board would like with regard to emergency access, no emergency access. It really does not make a difference to the applicant. Whatever the board suggests, we'll do. And with regard to the lighting, did you testify at that?
And I respect whatever our planner, Mr. Gary, says, but I am concerned about our Patterson residents.
One other aspect with the proposed use of this parking lot, it's going to be an auxiliary use only as overflow parking. So on nights when it's not going to be used, there'd be no need to light the parking lot at all. It'll be blockaded off, I believe, and there'll be no reason to turn those lights on. And with LED lighting, you can put them on a separate fuse, a separate line. So it minimizes any light intrusion into Patterson.
Commissioner Watkins, the engineering will make sure that the no foot candles goes over onto any other property other than the property that is for the proposal. It's an engineering concept. I think the lighting, I looked at it, but I left it for engineering. There is no, the lighting is directed by usually LED lighting, and it's directed like straight down with some guides on it, so it doesn't spill over onto anyone's property, except the property that it's there to light up.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question, if I may. Commissioner Vega, I have another question regarding how far is, how can I put these words together here? How far is it from that gate? How far is the lot going to be, the parking lot? From the gate that is there now, how far is it?
It appears to be 100 feet.
So from that gate, it's going to be 100 feet back?
Yeah. If you're at the gate, you're talking about the gate on Berkshire, correct?
On Berkshire, yes.
Yeah, it appears to be 100 feet running back if we're looking at it going northeast there. Yeah,
100 feet back.
correct.
That's pretty close, okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Any other commissioners?
Commissioner Monaro, Chairman. Okay, bless you.
Bless you.
On the sides of the gate, good evening, by the way, I'm sorry.
Good evening.
On the sides of the gates, there's a wall besides that? Or is there a wall or anything? I'm concerned for the neighbors that are surrounding that immediate area. I want to make sure that their privacy is also taken into consideration.
I believe the residence home is here.
We don't have that part.
There is a proposed or an existing wall between the resident who spoke earlier and the subject site. And that's the wall that's not finished yet. It needs some repair work. It also needs to be enhanced with the fence, the solid vinyl fence we were discussing earlier, and also with the arborvitaes, which will be planted at 6 to 8 feet and then grow from there. So right now it's a partial picture because the site's still under construction.
Right. I want to make sure that there's some kind of, it gives it some kind of value, some kind of increase, something aesthetically pleasing to the area, to give some kind of benefit back to the residents of Patterson, as opposed, especially the immediate neighbors, instead of just a gate. And, do we know what kind of gate is going on up there, besides just the height and besides the dimensions and the height? Do we know what material is being used for that gate?
The engineer did talk about PVC, and typically that's a solid fence, and typically that is a white or a beige or a cream type color.
Okay.
Now, you're sitting on the retaining wall that's already in place, so that the fence would be above on the wall that's going on the incline up the left side of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner? Okay. That's it? Okay. No, the ejector. Yes.
First, I need to correct a statement that was made by Mr. Paparosi about the Stop and Shop v. Board of Adjustment, the 315 NJ Super 427. That case is not at all analogous to the present situation where you have an expansion of a non-conforming use. In the Stop and Shop case, there was a prior use that was permitted, a commercial use, and there was an adjacent grandfathered in, or they didn't need a variance, residentially zoned area that was used as a parking lot. In that particular case, they changed the permitted commercial use to a different permitted commercial use, and therefore the court said it was a hardship. But that is, in my view, different than this situation where they're attempting to attain a new variance to expand the non-conforming use. So I think that's important to point out. Also, what I think is important to point out is that the term structure is defined in a municipal land use law as a combination of materials to form a construction for occupancy, use, or ornamentation. So it's our view that, in fact, the additional variance is required that was testified to by the planner.
Well, Mr. Earl, I have to disagree with you. I've been here 7 years, and I've been told by the Director of Planning, as well as the zoning officers, Patterson's lot coverage is for buildings and structures only.
Right,
So-
and I think the definition of structure, though, is different than a building. It's anything that's constructed.
Right, but habitable, this is not habitable. Blacktop is not habitable.
Fair
so-
enough. And with respect to the Stop and Shop case, I'm sure the board counsel can read it and provide appropriate advice to the board. But I definitely think that statement that you made was incorrect about the import of that case. And in fact...
That case also says that the owner suffers a hardship, and the hardship is due to a split zone lot.
Right, but
And
that's
that is the
not,
same
it's
here.
not that simple. I mean, in Cox and Koenig, it says the Stop and Shop case involved an accessory use on a split lot. In Stop and Shop, the court considered whether the benefit of a use variance granted on the residential portion of a split lot property to permit accessory parking and encroachment of the dominant structure flowed to a successor in title who sought to change the use on that portion of the lot zoned commercial. In the unique factual situation there presented, both the prior and the proposed principal use were permitted in the commercial zone. So that's not what we're talking about here, that's for sure. Here we're talking about a new variance.
I'll disagree with you, but that's okay.
That's okay, yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. So let me ask you this question.
If I could just, sorry, just interject for a second. Maybe if the commissioners don't base your decision upon what Gary's saying or what Mr. Earl is saying about the Stop and Shop case, please just use your standard criteria under the land use law, and we could debate this in another forum or on another day, if at all.
Right, now your testimony, sir, is that the reason why there's a special need for this variance, a special reason, is because of two things, right? The first thing is that because of this unique split lot where there was approval given in Totowa, that creates a unique hardship. Is that right?
That's part of it, but there's also the section of my testimony which talked about the changed conditions affecting the Patterson lot because of the issuance of the construction permits to build walls and import soil.
Right. Now, how was your client able to obtain a construction permit in Patterson without a use variance?
He applied for a construction permit for the retaining walls.
But no, he had no variance with respect to those retaining walls.
I think that's correct, but I did not handle that for the applicant, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, the fact that we had those two circumstances, the approval in Totowa and the construction of a retaining wall, the obtaining of a permit and earth moving, both of those conditions were created by the owner of the property. Is that correct?
They were created by the owner of the property, and both the city and the borough contributed to them by granting the approvals and issuing the permits.
Right, but your client applied for the construction permit. Is that right?
Yes, and the city granted. It's not like the applicant, in this case, just built retaining walls because he felt like it. It was construction authorized by valid permits.
Correct, and he made a decision to get a variance in Totowa. Is that right? In Totowa.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, in fact, the condition that you're describing was self-created. Is that correct?
I don't think it was self-created, and I don't think that's the basis for why we're seeking an approval. We believe that this furthers the purposes of the municipal land use law and that special reasons exist.
And what are the special reasons?
Change conditions with the approval of a parking lot on half of this lot, the issuance of construction permits for retaining walls and importation of fill, and the isolation of this lot from the balance of the Patterson community by the, as a result of those earlier approvals.
So both of the three things you cited were all things that your client created through his applications, both for permits and for zoning approvals. Is that correct?
Well, yes, because the Borough of Totowa and the City of Paterson decided they were in the public interest to grant those approvals. So it was in furtherance of the public interest, and in the case of Totowa, based on public hearings and a board decision. So yes, that was in the public interest to grant those approvals.
Well, nevertheless, the fact that that the split lot condition where one half has been approved and the other has not, and the fact that these construction permits were granted for your client to construct the building or the structure he wants to put there, those were things that he voluntarily engaged in to create the present situation. Is that correct?
It resulted in a change condition on the lot, yes.
Now, if not for the change condition on the split lot, what would have prevented your client from constructing a residential property there that met the zoning requirements?
I haven't analyzed this application in that regard, and there may be many factors which I'm not privy to. I reviewed this application to develop 17 parking spaces on a 4,800 square foot lot, give or take a few square feet.
So you don't know, as you stand here, whether or not a residential structure, a conforming residential structure could have been put on that split lot, right? That's the answer. You don't know.
No, I disagree on that, with all due respect. We know that the lot area is under the Patterson standards. We also know that the frontage is not consistent with the R1 standards. So I do know that a conforming dwelling couldn't be built on that lot because it's not a conforming lot for Patterson, according to the Patterson ordinance.
But that would only be a bulk variance, not a use variance, correct?
Again, I haven't reviewed that, so I think you're right, but I haven't reviewed that application.
Okay. So you've referred a lot to this parking as quote-unquote overflow parking. Is that right?
Yes, I have. The idea is that because of its proximity to the building, the idea is that spaces more convenient and closer to the building would be occupied first, and that this, based on the testimony elicited in Totowa, primarily, I believe, by the applicant, is that this parking space would not be used on a regular basis, but it would be only used on special events. And no, I don't know how many special events there are in a year. I just don't know that answer.
Maybe I'll try to yell. Could you guys hear me if I speak this loud? Can everyone hear me this way so we don't have to keep doing this? It's awkward. What is the expected occupancy of the structure?
I do not know. I'm not an architect.
You don't know. Let me ask you this question. You were involved in the Totowa variances?
I was involved in the most recent application to Totowa, and I think I testified back in spring of this year.
Okay. How many parking spaces were required to conform with the Totowa ordinance, and what kind of variance did they get in that regard?
I did not review that because it's irrelevant to this application.
Well, it's not irrelevant to the application because you are testifying that this will be an overflow lot only used on occasion. My understanding is that this is substantially under there's way less parking spaces than what's normally required. So I want to attack your testimony in that regard. So I want you to testify how many parking spaces were required based on the occupancy of the building. What variance did they get?
The applications for D1 variance in Patterson and the 17 stalls that we're seeking And as far as how many parking spaces are required by TOTWA, I honestly do not know. I did not review that portion of this application because, in my estimation and opinion, it's irrelevant.
Well, you just testified, sir, did you not, that this will only be used on occasion. So if there's severe underparking, it's going to be used all the time, right? That's what why I want you to answer the, oh, my gosh, are you all right?
Yes, that's your understanding of the application. That's not mine, and I'm not sure it's accurate.
Well, you're the one testifying, though, that it's only going to be used on occasion. So how did you come to that testimony?
It was a reflection of the applicant's testimony in TOTWA. I'm not saying I'm quoting it, but it's a paraphrase of the testimony in front of the TOTWA Board of Adjustment.
Well, you don't know, as you stand here, as the planner for this project and also for the TOTWA applications, how many parking spaces were required in TOTWA and what kind of variance was received. You don't know the answer.
Yeah, but Mr. Earl, the total application
Hold on.
was approved, though, with the parking that they proposed.
But the point is, he's saying this parking is only going to be used on occasion. My point is it's going to be used all the time.
But,
So
but
this is
Mr.
not
Earl,
correct.
I'm not sure if TOTWA approved their application because of 16 parking spaces. You know, I mean, the TOTWA application, if it was short 100 spaces, they approved it. They said it was okay if it was short 100 spaces. So it's possible they may use it, but you have to also remember, if it's a catering hall, they may not have events every night. It may be Friday, it may be Saturday, it may be months in between, like when...
How do you know?
I don't know, but what I'm saying is, they approved it maybe based on that. I'm only going on a professional planner's acknowledgement of... I'm sure they didn't say, well, if you don't get the 16 spaces in Patterson, then this application is denied, or that would have been part of the resolution.
I just
So-
don't understand why everyone's so afraid of answering the question, how many parking spaces would it normally require, this entire monolithic structure that exists?
But it's not part of this application.
It goes right to the planner's credibility in the value of his testimony. He's saying this is only going to be used on occasion. I'm trying to understand where he gets that from, because I think it's going to be used every night, but that's just not...
How about we get the owner to come up and say that, okay? And then,
How does he say it without the context of the fact that there's hardly any parking at the site?
well, maybe he could explain it. Let's.
Well, why can't the professional planner explain it? He was involved in the application.
He testified to that at the total application. He has no knowledge of that. He's not prepared to testify to that. He's prepared to testify to the application in front of the board tonight, which he's already done.
Okay. Let me, before I move on, though, do you know the answer to the question about the number of parking spaces in the variance, or do you not?
No, if I did know, I would have told you. I don't know.
All right. Now, you've testified that the negative criteria are met or won't be offended, I guess, by this application. Why do you suggest that having a parking lot right next door to a bunch of several residential houses will not have a negative impact?
Well, with all due respect to this board, Commissioner, TOTWA has already approved parking. And as I indicated earlier, this lot is 35 feet of frontage. So doing the math, that means that parking is going to be within 35 feet of the neighbor's property line as it's already been approved. So I don't think that the additional 16 stalls that are only going to be used as required will have a negative impact on those residential neighbors surrounding our property, especially when one considers the steps we're taking to mitigate any potential impact. The height of the wall, the fence, the planting of the 6 to 8 feet arborvitaes, which will only grow taller, the use of LED lights and house shields on those lights, the placement of those lights so they will provide the minimum amount of light necessary and minimize any potential spillover. Also, the fact that there'll be no access from Berkshire Avenue to this site for the parking, and that all the access will come through TOTWA, is another basis for concluding that this will not have a negative impact on the surrounding land uses.
Okay. So it's your testimony that having 14-foot lights outside, which are higher than the fence and the trees, will not have a negative impact on the people who live right here, and right right down here, and right over here?
Yeah, if you look at it, that's what a streetlight is. And streetlights are on all the time. This facility has the ability to mitigate that by saving the applicant some money by not lighting them when there's no use for that parking area. So I think, in conclusion, yes, I don't think it will be an adverse impact, a substantial detriment, which is the word from the statute, to those property owners, no.
And you don't think that, by the way, what are the hours of operation of this facility?
I did not study for this application because I was here for a parking lot.
Well, it's a parking lot that will be operated during the hours when this hall, this festive hall will be open, right? Presumably, you know if they're going to serve alcohol there?
God, I hope so.
Good answer. So,
Yes.
threw me off my game
Sorry,
for a second.
sorry.
That's all right, that's good. So, is it, let me strike that, let me back up a second. So you don't know the hours of operation? You don't know if there's going to be valets or other people going in and out of this parking lot at 2 a.m.?
That is correct. I do not know the hours of operation.
So
But let me finish if I might.
Yeah.
That's one of the advantages of a valet parking space. The valets need to go get cars and bring them back. They don't loiter. They don't have radios playing. They don't have a bunch of people with them talking and yakking. They get in the car, drive it off, get the next car, drive it off. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, the lights will be heading north away from the residential area of Patterson. So I don't think that will be a detrimental impact, substantial detrimental impact to the surrounding property owners. No, I do not.
How do you know that the valets won't be down there slamming doors and talking and chatting all the way up till 2 or 3 or whenever they finish their shift? How do you know? You just testified they won't be doing it. How do you know valets?
That's not what valets do. Because they have to get car keys, and they have to know to pick up the Buick or the BMW or whatever it is, and they can't do that if they're down hanging out where the cars are parked. They have to be up where the customers are.
I thought the other use of this parking was also for the employees, right? Extra employee parking? I think that was testified.
I heard that, and I don't recollect that from the Totowa application, and I did not review that application for preparation in tonight's hearing.
That whether or not this will be used for employment, I mean, I think I've heard that tonight from the engineer.
I think you did, and my recollection is that it was going to be used by valets or by employees getting the cars, but not for employee parking. But I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, so you don't know the answer.
That's
So
an
it
yes.
could be that
It
at 2
could-
a.m. when the
yes.
employees all get out, they come down to this parking lot and, hang out, and do whatever they do.
That would not be to the applicant's advantage, because then he'd have to deal with complaints.
All right, now,
Excuse me.
We broke the mic.
Excuse me, need to take a 5-minute break.
One second, Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, the chairman has called this meeting to order.
I'm 68 years, I played in this place, I gotta come and see all this ridiculous stuff. You're fixing something that was done.
We're ready.
We're ready?
Yes.
All right. I don't know where I left off. I'll have to start over. No, I'm kidding. All right. So, what days of the week will this facility be open?
The parking lot will be open only as necessary.
Let me clarify my question. What days of the week will the catering hall / restaurant / whatever else will go on at the primary
Mr. Earl,
structure?
I think that's a question for the owner, right?
Well,
He'll be able to say, I don't think a planner could tell the owner when to open and when to close, right?
I'm going to object to you interrupting me. I also am going to object to that because it is directly relevant to what's going on here. You know, what day of the week is this
How's he know?
facility going to be open? He is testifying as a professional planner that this place will not negatively impact the residents of Patterson, right? That's what he's testifying, or not substantially negatively impact, right? So, of course, it matters when the facility will be open, what hours it will be open, how much they're going to use the parking. All those things are directly relevant to what's going on in this application.
All I'm saying, sir, is that I don't think he would know. That would be like asking the engineer, when are you open? Or asking the attorney. Wouldn't that the best person to ask that question be the owner to tell you when they're open? It's common sense. It's not planning.
I think to create a rational basis for his professional planner opinion that this will not impact the negative criteria or not negatively impact these residents, he's got to know how many cars are going to be there, when it's going to be open, what hours it's going to be open, what kind of things are going on at that site. How can he make a judgment otherwise?
I think he testified already to the fact that the lot is going to be in use when the building is open. Well, obviously, and I think his testimony is relevant to the fact that when that lot is in use, there are protective measures involved to guide basically protect the residents of the area with respect to the fencing, with regards to the lighting, and with regards to the noise prevention. As far as the hours go, I don't think that the days, does the day matter? Does it matter if it's a Wednesday or a Friday or a Saturday?
It absolutely does. It matters. Are people going to be home enjoying their weekends? Are they going to be home trying to go to sleep for work when this facility is operating and there's cars doors being slammed and people arguing in the parking lot? Of course all that matters.
I think it's fair to say that it may be any day. It may be any day. So the fact that you're asking him to testify to a specific day, I think is irrelevant. It may be any day. I believe, I'm not sure about this, the owner will be able to testify to it, but I'm sure it's open 7 days a week. It's going to be open when it's rented or it's going to be used by the clientele. I mean, I think that's a simple answer. I don't think it goes to his credibility as to whether he knows what exact day it is. He's testifying to the impact on any given day.
Does sound have a more negative impact at night or during the day? Come on.
I am not a noise expert, but I would say that when the ambient noise levels are low, it doesn't take much additional sound vibration to be received by receptors. So on a quiet night, noise will be, recipients would be more sensitive to a certain level of noise on a quiet night as opposed to a busy day.
Right, and you would agree with me, would you not, that if people are, away at work versus being at home and enjoying their home, the negative sounds or other negative things that could happen won't impact them when they're not at home, right? We're talking about the neighbors to this property specifically.
Well, the state of New Jersey has a noise code, which we're not allowed to violate, and I don't believe we will. So I see no reason why noise would be an issue.
So it's your testimony that people who may have to have a parking lot placed next to them, noise will not be an issue for them?
I'm saying we're going to meet the noise criteria of the state statute, and therefore, since that's designed to protect public health, welfare, and safety, that that should be good enough in this instance, yes.
What's the decibel limit in this location?
I am not a noise expert, but I believe it's 50 at 10 p.m., and I think it goes up to 65 decibels on the A scale at 7 a.m.
So is it your testimony that any sound levels that do not exceed those decibel limitations do not prejudice the negative criteria?
Well, within that noise criteria, there are exceptions. It's not just a flat 50 dBA. I would say if we're within the noise, if we're consistent and compatible with the state statute, which was designed to protect all the citizens of New Jersey, I would say yes, that would not raise to a substantial detriment to the neighborhood.
What's the decibel of a slammed car door?
I think there are so many variables on that, I could not possibly give you an answer.
So you don't, let me ask you this question. In order to render your opinion that these negative criteria are not going to disturb the neighbors, that the sound and the noise and whatever else may go on, don't you have to know the basic information about the operation of the facility and the density of use of the parking area and that type of information to render that opinion? Don't you have to know that?
I'm allowed to rely on the earlier testimony of people. You've heard the engineer for the project testify. I've also had the benefit of attending the hearings in Totowa, which indicated that there would be no noise violations. Because a zoning board like this cannot grant the variance from the noise statute. So since the board can't waive those standards, we have to adhere to them.
Now, I thought earlier, though, you told me you didn't know what days of the week it would be open, what hours, how often that parking lot will need to be used based on the parking situation. You testified you didn't know that information, though, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so you don't know those basic facts about the operation of the property.
I make a distinction between substantial detriment to the neighbors and the actual use of the parking lot. I don't believe the parking lot can possibly rise to this parking lot, the 16 stalls that are being sought, with the configuration and safeguards put in place, can rise to a substantial detriment to the neighbors.
And what are those safeguards again? A 6-foot high fence and some arborvitaes on the north side of that fence. Is that it?
And the lighting and the standards that are going to be imposed on that lighting, both as LED, or when the lighting will be on, when it'll be off, and the fact that the retaining wall will help level off the property. You've heard testimony, and I think you've described it as a hill, and we've also heard testimony that because water runs downhill, sometimes there have been impacts, and I believe the neighbor to the south already testified to those. Well, once the property is regraded and it's not sloping down like that, and there's drainage improved, My testimony is that this proposed 16 or 17 proposed space parking lot will not have a substantial detriment to the neighbors. That's correct.
All right. Now, let me ask you this question. When vehicles are attending this parking lot, when they're getting there, they have to drive downhill, right?
For part of the way, yes.
And when they drive downhill, their headlights will necessarily shine towards the residential properties located down here, right? They're gonna come down and they're gonna shine towards these properties. Is that correct?
I'm not so sure, because as you look at, I don't know if we marked it or not, but as you look at the site plan drawing that we're reviewing tonight, the driveway into this parking lot basically travels east-west. It doesn't head south towards this woman's property. It's coming in east-west. It's pointing towards the applicant's other lands, I believe. And when they leave at night, which I presume will be dark, the headlights will be shining north again towards the property of the applicant. So the suggestion that these cars are streaming down the hill facing the neighbors is just not reflected on the site plan.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because I see right here this very tiny little piece that you're showing on your drawing here, right? I'm seeing that this is east-west, but how does it get, the building is over here, right? So it has to go north-south, right? How do the cars get from here to the front? Doesn't it have to go around? Absolutely. It's totally relevant to how this parking is going to impact these people.
That road is on Totowa. Totowa has already heard this application several times. It's been approved. I'm sure, although I wasn't there for it, I'm sure that was addressed. I happen to know the planner, who I understand had a 70-page review letter in Totowa that addressed all these issues in the Totowa application. Totowa did have to take into consideration the fact that there were adjacent homeowners, even though they were in Patterson, Totowa still had to take that into consideration in their decision. So, again, I believe it's irrelevant. I believe it's points removed. I mean, they've been discussed, they've been determined in another town where the majority of the project lies, including the road that we see which way the headlights are going to point.
Yeah, there's an important difference, though, right? The people who are within 200 feet of here getting their first bite, right? When they did all this and all the things that are going to impact them, they didn't get their bite. That's the difference. And I'm not attempting to say that this board can reverse the Totowa, but what we are trying to do is minimize the impact of this overdevelopment on the property down here, on the Patterson residence. That's what we're talking about. And in that connection, let me ask you this question. Do you know what was here before this, before its current state when everything has been torn down?
No, I do not.
Was it trees and shrubbery? You don't know?
I do not know.
Okay, well, we have some proof on that. We'll put it in later. Let me ask you this, since you're an expert, you could be hypothetical, right? If you didn't create the parking here in Patterson and you left a buffer area of trees or something like, wouldn't that be more beneficial to the residents who live right here?
I don't think that's a relevant question, with all due respect, because I've been to the site, and I don't believe there are any trees in this location. I don't know when they were taken down, but if you look at the photos associated with and attached to the drawing, it's a construction site. So to suggest that it can become a Garden of Eden might be pleasant, but it's not factual, and I like to deal with facts.
Who made it a construction site?
I don't know.
Was it the applicant?
I don't know.
Was it the owner?
I don't know.
But you don't know if there were trees, you don't know what was here, right? You don't know
I
what
think
was here.
I testified to that. I do not know. You're right.
Chairman, you gotta stop him.
I mean, at this point, obviously, it's attempting to delay the application. So we take the application to the deadline so that there can't be a determination made tonight. And I mean, obviously, I give council credit, I understand what he's hired to do and why he's doing what he's doing. But obviously, I'm gonna ask that the board and the chairman put a stop to this, because clearly it's just a delay tactic at this point.
It's not a delay. We're trying to get to the legitimate issue of what's best for the residents of Patterson.
You cannot speak over each other. I have a court reporter, can only hear one at a time.
Please.
And it was duly noted. The chairman will answer you in a few minutes. One moment.
I do have, I only have a few more questions. I'm going to move on from the negative criteria. I think I've made my point. I hope. Just want to make one, it's probably a dumb question, but let me ask this question.
Uh-oh, now you're gonna get me.
Yeah, no, so this property has all the approvals from Totowa to operate its facility, whatever it is, right?
Only within the boundaries of Totowa, not for this particular 16 or 17 stall parking space lot.
For this applicant to, here's my question, though. They don't, the Totowa approvals are not contingent in any way on getting an approval from Patterson for these 17 parking spaces, as you say, correct?
The resolution was about 52 pages, if I remember correct. I don't recall every condition in the resolution. I simply do not know.
You don't know? Okay. All right. I don't have anything else to ask. Thank you.
Now, I wasn't intending to call any further witnesses. I was, I'm sorry. Oh,
Somebody else has the questions.
okay, I'm sorry.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Chairman, staff, applicants, respected counsel. David Sue, 34 Van Houten Street, Patterson, New Jersey, 07505. I'd like to just clarify a couple of things that are in the record which need to be resolved. The City of Patterson Municipal Code on page 15 defines lot coverage.
Wait, I'm sorry, sir. Are you directing your questions to the witness, or is this?
No, actually, without this predicate, it would affect my line of questioning because it was defined by the planner that coverage is not anything other but a habitable building. Now, I would have questions, and we would be considering different variances if, in fact, that was not true. So I need to just clarify this matter, and then I can go on with my questioning after I clarify another aspect.
But I'm not sure what record you're correct.
Well, sir, I could have already finished it. I could have already done this.
Yeah, but I'm just not sure
Okay,
it's proper.
you know, sir, you interrupted me when I was speaking. That's
I did.
inappropriate.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let me finish what I'm saying, and then you'll understand, as opposed to me backtracking 3 times to explain what the relevance is.
Move on, Mr.
Well, do
Sue.
you have questions for this witness? Yes or no?
Okay, sir, yes, I have a question for you. The definition of lot coverage in the City of Patterson Municipal Code, Chapter 483, Zoning and Land Use Development, approved in April 2016, defines lot coverage as the portion of a lot that is covered with buildings or structures. Now, earlier this evening, we heard respected planner state that only buildings can be considered coverage. Sir, you heard the definitions of structure versus building in the municipal land use law. Are you, in hearing me read this, and you can read it for yourself, it's right here in my hand, would you say that the coverage of the parking lot is in fact coverage, or is it not coverage?
You don't object to the question. He's obviously asking him to draw a legal conclusion based upon the statutory reading. And obviously, this witness is not qualified to answer that question. I mean, obviously, he's asking for his own interpretation.
Well, sir, you were perfectly delighted to entertain a planner.
I'm making a statement.
No, I understand, but I'm making a statement too. I'm rebutting. I'm rebutting. You were content to allow a planner, not an attorney, interpret the ordinance as it applies without any citation. Here I am providing a citation.
Sir, we're not going to accept any citation or any legal conclusions that you're going to
I'm
make.
not making a legal conclusion.
Well, apparently you are.
No,
What is
I'm-
your question for the witness?
Well,
And
I'm
put-
asking if the Patterson
and
zoning
please,
ordinance,
if
I'm
you
going to
can
ask the question.
Not ask a compound question.
I'm not
Ask
asking
him-
a compound question.
Ask him
Sir,
one question
you
at
are
a time.
Do not
frustrating my
speak over
ability to
each other,
speak.
one person at a time. I have a court reporter, can only hear one at a time.
I did say structure.
Sir, stop interrupting me and let me ask my questions. We could have been
Mr.
done.
Sue, can
Please
you
do.
continue on with your questioning,
Sir.
please?
Yes, sir, if the Patterson zoning ordinance defines a structure as lot coverage, would you describe the coverage on this lot as being lot coverage?
No. It's
How
not
would
a
it
structure.
apply?
I'm going to follow the lead of the Patterson planner.
Fine. So we have a Patterson planner, we have the applicant's attorney, who says that only an attorney can make this interpretation. We have the bare ordinance in my hand to be read. Nobody wants to consider
Sir,
it.
again, you
And-
need to ask
Mr.
questions.
Sue,
You're making
Mr.
a
Sue,
speech to the board.
your question is this parking lot.
Sir, my question is specifically related to the parking lot because it was raised earlier this evening whether or not there would be variances for coverage. And the planner is supposed to testify to the variances. So if we don't understand what variances we have. No, he did not.
And that is correct, Mr. Rush. It is not, a pavement is not a structure.
Okay.
Okay? I'm going to say it again for the record. If Mr. Sue wants to take it further, you can. It says lot coverage is buildings and structures. Structures are habitable enclosures. And a pavement is not. That is my definition for the board. You have a different opinion, that is fine. But that's
Sir,
not what I'm instructing the board.
Where's your authority coming from?
I'm a
Sir,
licensed planner for
sir,
over
sir.
35
That
years.
doesn't mean anything if you
Mr.
don't
Do not
have your
speak
authority.
over each other.
Mr. Sue,
Cannot do that.
you either need to cross-examine this witness or you need to sit down.
Sir,
This isn't
I've
an
been
opportunity-
frustrated in cross-examining the witness.
I understand you're frustrated, that shows.
I'm not
greatly.
frustrated. It's just, you don't want me to cross-examine him and ask my questions.
I'm asking
You've
you-
interrupted me every time I
I'm
speak.
asking you to cross-examine him. I'm interrupting you because you're going off on a diatribe, on a tangent.
I am not-
If you have a
Sir, I don't
question for this
agree.
witness, you could ask the question. If not, you're going to have to sit down.
All right. Sir, have you ever been to the top of Berkshire Avenue?
A question I can answer. Yes, I have been.
Okay. Have you ever seen a photograph of the condition of Berkshire Avenue now?
No, I have not.
So I'm going to put before you a photograph, which you can mark.
Yeah, sir, you cannot, you can't bring this evidence in here.
I
This is
can
not-
bring it in when I testify, can't I?
This is not in the record. Nobody knows what you're referring to. It's not in, it's not in the application materials. Nobody knows what you're showing up there.
Sir, I can circulate it to the board, you can mark it in. I mean, sir, effectively, you're blocking me from doing almost anything in terms of questioning the witness.
Because you're doing everything but question the witness.
I'm trying to show him a photograph and ask him a question about it because it directly pertains to the application. You won't let me do it.
Integrity taken, does he have that?
Yeah, he's nice, he's got authenticated.
But you need to ask.
Well, yeah, we're not there yet.
I can testify as to the credibility of the photograph, and I believe the location is easily recognizable.
everybody
We
has-
have witnesses
everybody has-
here that live on the street.
Well, the board would need to see the photographs, number one.
Of course.
You would have to give them to the secretary.
Of
They would
course.
have to be duplicated or passed around.
I have multiple
And then they would
copies.
have to be authenticated. So if that's something you'd like to do,
Certainly, we can do that.
okay,
It's part of my line of questioning.
okay.
I'd like to, may I have them, please?
I need one for myself as a reference.
So you need to have these organized,
They are organized.
but you want one of them. I want to take them all.
I need one for a reference for myself. There's enough to go around.
Oh, these are not,
Yeah, they're all duplicates.
are they?
You want to examine it?
That's not what I, please, let me, How many do you have?
Look,
I have enough copies for all the board members and staff.
One set of each. They all look at them one by one.
All right. It would be,
This is the first.
yeah, let's do them, okay. This is
So I
one.
need one.
All right.
Put this here. I only need one set. That's all I need.
Okay,
The attorney also will look at them.
that's fine.
Okay? There's that. No, not yet. Do not.
Counselor, can you see this as I'm going
Right
through them?
now, do not speak
No,
to
just-
him. Do not talk to him. Not right. It is wrong. You address the government. I need you on the record. That's when you're ready. I'd like you to put on the record, how many pictures are you submitting to me?
You should actually be sworn, I think, at this point.
That's fine. Yes. David Sue, 34 Van Houten Street, Patterson, New Jersey, 07505. So I have before me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 photographs. I can, please, if,
Just moving on, I'm actually going to I'll stipulate to the pictures. If he authenticates the date they were taken, I'll say they were authentic of the site, the date they were taken. Obviously, our planner hasn't seen them. He's not prepared to answer any questions for them. So if he'd just like to submit these into the record, if he just authenticates the date they were taken, and that's the condition of the property when he took the picture, we'll stipulate to that, and then we'll go into the.
all right.
That's fine. But obviously, a planner can't answer any questions to the pictures.
No, the pictures go to the attorney. He's look at them, he determines if they're allowed to be.
Well, I've been asked to substantiate, and I'd like to do that. Okay, so the first picture is harvested from Google Maps, and they have the ability.
Object, obviously, he can't testify to what's.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct.
I can tell you what I did. It's got a date on the
Sir,
image.
did you take these pictures or these photographs that you took?
It's a screenshot that I took from the computer.
Again, objection, he can't authenticate the picture, he doesn't know what he took.
I agree.
Okay. This picture I took myself.
Okay, let's hear about it.
It is a picture of the building from Berkshire Avenue.
Which building?
The building as it is constructed now, and it shows the grading of the lot, which I needed to ask questions about because it doesn't appear in the drawings. And it's relevant because if we don't know how high or what the grade level is of the parking lot, then we don't understand how it's going to affect. So, for example, it was tested.
When was the photograph taken? When did you take the photograph?
I took this photograph probably in September.
Of
I
this
couldn't
year?
give you an exact date.
September 2021.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You want to?
And you would like the board to consider these?
I'd like the board to consider that photo, yes.
Okay. Have you showed it to council for
Sir.
the applicant?
Where did you take this picture from? Where were you standing?
I was standing on Berkshire Avenue.
And then what is this picture of here?
That is the fence that crosses the right-of-way, which is Berkshire Avenue, and the house there with the picket fence. I don't have the exact number, but I'm sure I think one of the witnesses said that it's her home. Okay? Do you want to mark them individually or collectively?
May I address the attorney at this moment?
Sure.
At the, what he is testifying to at this moment, would you like to label it A1?
I'm not sure A1, O1.
Oh, well.
I cannot write on it, please put O1, and when the picture is taken. This is September with no date, am I correct?
September 2021.
It didn't, the pen kind of blanked out. Slippery paper.
Sign your name, David Sue. I'll write your name, I can't read. That's fine. Okay. Put it here upside down, and as you continue, you may continue writing.
Okay.
And just a brief proffer, why do you want the board to consider this?
Well,
what
I mean,
precisely?
in this case,
No, the one photo that's marked as 01, what would you like to tell the board about that
Well,
photograph?
it shows that the site has been filled and graded at the area of the parking lot, and I have additional photos which I took myself that show that the area where the parking is to be proposed has already been fully walled and it's been filled. It is a grade that appears to be different than what appears in the site plan drawings, which shows a slope. It is not a flat area where the parking lot is. So there was testimony as to the infiltration of lighting based on the height of a pole. But there's the pole is sitting on a parcel of land that has been filled and raised in height. Then the way the lighting will function will be fundamentally different and would impact the neighbors.
It's impossible to tell from that picture. That picture is undeveloped property. That is not the final product that our experts.
Well, I have more pictures.
You don't have pictures of the final product, which is what you're testifying to. Everything you're going to show this board is of undeveloped property.
Well, I have.
Our expert, everything that they've testified to, their lighting, their angles, their slope, everything is based upon the property being completed and finished. None of your pictures show the property completed and finished. Everything he's saying is irrelevant at this point. He's making hypothetical guesses and approximations based upon unfinished, unleveled property.
Well, sir, if the record, frankly, sir, if the record were properly enhanced, that we actually had a finished grade in any of the evidence or materials supplied by the applicant, I wouldn't have to pursue this.
All right, this is just getting argumentative.
They're not there. Well, then you show me where it is. Show me the finished grade.
Mr. Seward, we're not going to argue about
I need
your
to know the
exhibits.
finished grade.
You have to be a surveyor, first of all, to do topo.
You have an engineer. No, I want to know he's saying.
An engineer cannot do topo by code. You need to be a surveyor. And if you're not a surveyor, you can't testify under the grading of this property.
I am not trying to testify as to the grading of the property, sir. There's
what
an
I understood.
application submitted before this
All
board.
right, this
There
is
is a
getting really
void in the
far
record.
afield. This is getting really far afield. You're supposed
is
to be
not far afield,
cross-examining
sir.
the witness. I mean, if you want us to look at photographs, that's fine, but you need to speed it up and you need to get done with it. We're not going to sit here and argue about it.
Who knows the finished grade of this property? He said the finished grade is what's relevant. Who knows it?
But this is questions for the planner. The planner is not licensed to do grading, so you're asking the wrong person.
Do you have an engineer here then?
Sir, you can't ask the board questions either. I mean,
No,
they're
I
just-
want an, okay.
The board.
Sir, well, ask Counselor. Counselor, do you have a witness that can testify as to the finished grade of the parking lot because it doesn't appear in any of the drawings?
I could put them as an exhibit. It means nothing if I don't get them labeled.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Can you do that?
It's scary.
The engineer can be recalled. I think it's relevant. I'm trying to get to that.
No, you had the opportunity to cross-examine the engineer, and you didn't. That's it.
All right.
I'd like to ask the court reporter, are these gonna, the attorney, are they gonna be, the pictures that you have, are they all O1 as a whole?
No,
He's testified to one picture that he took himself.
that's correct. And I think he said there were 9, one of which we're not going to accept as it's Google, so then we're down to 7. So let's speed this along and quickly.
Okay. Of the pictures I had, I believe I've got 1, 2, 3. I just want to make sure how many I have of my own. Yeah, so I think I have another, this is out. You're saying that's out. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more that I took myself. And I object to not being able to put in the other ones.
Now, you took this picture yourself?
Yeah, I did. I used a drone.
Okay, and what date was that taken?
That was probably about 3 weeks ago. In September.
Are all these taken at the same time, relative at the same time?
Yeah, I would say so. All in September that I can understand.
Okay. and that
Okay.
was Obviously, before this application was heard, correct?
Well, heard here, yes.
Yeah, okay. I'll stipulate them.
Okay, all right, fine. So are they going to be 02, 03, 04, 05, 06, 07? They were all taken by David Sue in or about September of 2021.
Yeah, how do you want to mark them, Maggie?
The date is September 2021. Please sign it. 03.
And the board will take a look at these, Mr. Sue, and I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you have any cross-examination for this witness?
Yeah, I do. You know, sir, I just wanted to get my predicates in.
I'll speak any further until I have the court reporter put the exhibit on the, that's the way it is.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Please sign that one as well. How many are there in total, Mr. Sue?
What number are you up to there?
You have it in front of you.
Let's see. So you marked this one 03, 04, 02, you have 01, and then this is 05, and this is 06.
Thank you. Please do not speak any further. Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Sue, that's fine. Sure.
Pass him here. He will begin. Just give me a moment, okay?
I'm just going to let the chair see them.
May I have Mr. Paparazzi see them as well? But I will give them to the commissioners.
Is it okay if I speak?
Not at this moment.
Okay.
Yeah, Maggie, here you go.
No, Mr. Sue, you know, you have a right to be here, and that's fine, and I understand that you have opinions. However, this is not necessarily the opportunity to be expressing opinions. It's your opportunity to be cross-examining the witness, and you're going to have to constrain yourself to matters that were already elicited on direct examination. And if you have relevant questions for this witness, that's fine, we'll hear them, but we just can't sit here and have
For
a
clarification, sir, I understand what you're saying, but there is the Socratic method of questioning, where you lay a series of questions before somebody,
No.
building predicates to get to an answer.
Yeah,
It's a commonly understood.
Yeah, it's understood
means
in law
examining a
school.
witness.
It's understood
Sir,
in
you're
law
talking
school. It's
over
not
me again.
understood. It's
Sir,
not-
you are talking over me again.
Yes, I am.
Well, why don't you try and stop that? You've heard repeatedly that the court recorder can't hear
Right.
and record correctly if you're talking. You could allow me to finish speaking.
Do you
We would
have
be
any
done
more
a lot
que-
faster.
Do you have any more questions for the witness?
I do.
Okay, then start. Let's go.
Okay, actually, Maggie, I wanted to work with the photos, but I don't know which
I
one
can give
is
them back
numbered.
to you, sir, if you like,
Yeah, that'd be great.
okay?
How's he going to testify?
I do, but I didn't number them, so I don't know which one to refer to.
Well,
Yes.
Mr. Sue, you're just going to have to ask the questions because, again, the witness is not familiar with the photographs. So please just ask your questions and stick to matters that were already elicited on
Sir,
direct examination.
I understand. Sir, please.
Apparently you don't.
I do understand.
No,
sir.
apparently you don't.
Do you understand to not interrupt me? Thank you. Sir, you testified about lighting and its impact on the surrounding properties, did you not?
In this guy's case.
These are the photos, that's the tested photo, so that I can continue to give it to the commissioners.
No, I don't know what number's which, Maggie, that's all. Okay, so I just need to have the right, one, a set for me that I can
Maggie, give the photos to the commissioners because the planner can't answer questions on them anyway. So please just, let's go on.
Okay. Sir, you testified about the impact of lighting based on the height of the pole. Is that correct?
That's partially correct. I also talked about use of LED fixtures. I talked about the placement of the poles. I talked about the fact that there's going to be house side shields on the poles. And I also talked about the fact that this is going to be an overflow, limited use parking area, and the applicant's certainly not going to pay to light a lot that's not being used. And I said all of those contribute to minimizing and mitigating any impact on surrounding properties, therefore not creating a substantial detriment.
Sir, is there a lighting plan that you can show me?
That has not been submitted to this board.
Sir, are there details on the types of fixtures to be used specifically, other than just generally what type of bulb they will have?
Yeah, they're going to be 14 feet above grade,
What is the grade?
above finished grade elevation.
So how do you determine what that is?
I didn't.
Where is that information? If you say that it's relevant, I would like to see that piece of information so we know we don't have a lighting.
Mr. Sue, the building was a total application that was approved. It has nothing to do with the lot that's
Well,
being created.
let's talk about if you want to mention the word approved, that matter is in non-moot controversy. There's been a lawsuit filed against that application. It has, in fact, not received its final approval, and we were frustrated there, as I watched the meeting, similarly to here, where the public, through their counsel, were not even allowed to state their own case, which will most likely make it a nullity.
From what we understand on this board, it was approved. So that's
Okay.
all we have to go on, okay?
Well, I will submit a copy of the complaint, and then you'll have something else to go on.
Negative.
If it's subject to a complaint, it has nothing to do with this board because everything will be subject to. So if there's some sort of change in the total decision, it will affect this, but it would be so in the resolution. Yes. Exactly. So,
Sir, okay, my next question. Sir, why can't this lot be used for a conforming use? It's got residential zone on both sides of the border. It's got frontage to Berkshire Avenue. If it was not filled to the height it is now, is there any reason why it couldn't be used for conforming use?
Well, first of all, you partially answered that question yourself, because the property has been filled to some degree, and some construction permits have been issued for walls. So we're not dealing with what if, we're dealing with what's been approved. Secondly, this is not a conforming lot. It only has 35 feet of, or 36 feet or 32 feet of frontage along Berkshire Avenue, and the lot size does not conform to the Patterson R1 standards, so it's not like it's a conforming lot. This lot was going to need variances, and I did give testimony that having part of the lot developed as a paved parking area, it made more sense to have the entire property have that one consistent use.
Sir, but the essence of the use that we're talking about is residential versus commercial. Is that not correct?
We're here seeking a use variance and some ancillary bulk variances which might not be subsumed under the D1 variance.
But that doesn't necessarily answer my question, sir. The permitted use in both Totowa and Patterson is residential. All right? From what it appears, the applicant filled the site in expectation of the use that he wanted to put there. But prior to that, prior to the applicant purchasing the property, and we can ask him about the filling later, if in fact it had not been filled by the applicant for his purpose, and it was at the grades that it stood before, yeah, I'm sure there would be some bulk variances, but there would not be a D1 use variance, would there, sir?
As this property is developed today, there are construction permits issued by the city, and based on those construction permits, certain activities have gone forward. So to suggest that we can flip the page or use a magic wand and restore this to 1822 or 1896 or sometime else in the past is just not realistic, and it's not what the board, excuse me, and it's not what the board is dealing with. The board is dealing with an application for certain property, and that property is the way it is now, and how the applicant proposes to use it in the future, and going back to some mythical past is not what this board is dealing with.
Sir, you didn't answer my question. It's a simple yes or no question.
Listen, we all know that the application is for a use variance. It's established. It goes without saying. I don't know what point you're trying
I'm
to
asking the gentleman
Yes.
to tell me very clearly whether or not it is better to have a conforming use of residential versus the commercial use of parking lot.
But I don't know what you're talking about conforming.
He did not answer my
It's not a
question.
conforming lot.
Actually, sir,
I,
Propose an answer based upon what we would possibly like it to be or what he would like it to be. He testified to the condition of the property now. That question has been asked and answered.
it has not been answered.
I agree. We're going to sustain the objection. Mr. Sue.
All right, well, I want to just make a comment about the objection.
No, please don't.
I would like to.
No, please don't.
Excuse me, Mr.
You can ask
Sue.
your question.
We're here tonight to discuss a parking lot in Patterson on that property. Nothing else. You keep going from left to right, left to right. Mr. Sue, the application in total was approved as far as of our knowledge. The construction permits and all that other stuff was handled by the city of Patterson. So could you please stick to the parking lot in Patterson, please? Thank you.
I have been
And Mr.
sticking
Sue,
to
I'm
the
just going to
parking
say that I think you're running a risk of the chair finding you out of order. And if you're found to be out of order, quite frankly, I think your questioning can be shut down. You need to respect and obey the laws of the rules of decorum and parliamentary procedure, and you're just all over the place. You're being disruptive, you're being rude, and you're turning this into a circus.
Sir, I disagree with you. I was
Okay.
chairman of this board at one time. I know how it functions.
Well, you're not chairman anymore, so.
No, I'm not.
So do you have any more questions, or are you finished?
Yeah, sir, it seems like, to me, the way it's been portrayed this evening, is that this parking lot is being considered in a bubble. That we're just looking at the parking lot. We're just looking at 14 or 17 parking spaces.
Is this a question?
Yeah, it's a predicate, sir.
The board is not interested in predicates.
Well,
Please
but
just
sir, that's how you
ask
build a
questions.
question. That's
No.
how you build a question, sir.
No, it's not.
It has been for over 2,000 years. Can I finish? So, sir, Sir, as a planner, do you really think that applications should be considered just margining in just the number of parking spaces, as if everything else around it is irrelevant? Or is it the totality of what's happening, the way it affects the neighboring community?
Mr. Sue, anybody is allowed to go for a use variance for
I didn't
any
ask
kind
that
of
question.
use.
I didn't ask that question. I'm asking him whether or not it's better to consider the totality of what's happening.
Okay.
Or just look at, say, the 17 parking spaces.
Okay, so you'll get an answer, you'll get an answer on that point. Your question's closed, and we'll have an answer, and we'll move on.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I didn't understand the question. Mr. Sue used the word like marginalization or marginal something, and I didn't understand the question.
All right, I'll restate it. Sir, look, as a planner, planning, as I understand it, and perhaps you can clarify for me, means that you have to consider a totality of the environment, the neighborhood, the impact on the neighbors, the purpose for the use and where it's coming from, the nature of the use. But it seems to me, sir, that your presentation has been to just put it into a small little defined circle, and you're not communicating about the rest of it.
All right, so if you could just answer the question as best as you can, as best as you
We
can.
just disagree then, because I think he's misunderstood my testimony.
All right, all right. So, sir, let me ask you a question. They talked about the entry point, the emergency access vehicle point between Berkshire Avenue and the parking lot. Have you, sir, can you control the guy, please?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have people behind me making comments and remarks.
I don't hear any comments or
Oh, I can
remarks.
hear it.
Well, I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
Maybe you could stop. All right. So, sir, you talked about emergency access for vehicles. If this parking lot is filled with cars, will emergency vehicles be able to traverse the lot?
Obviously, any emergency discussion was just based upon limited to whether or not this board would like emergency access from Berkshire Avenue. He gave no testimony as to whether or not an emergency vehicle.
Agreed. It's sustained.
All right.
Mr. Sue. Next.
So let
if
me
anything else.
restate the question, please. All right? So if, please.
I don't know what you're talking about, sir.
Well, the gentleman is muttering.
I don't hear him muttering.
I hear it. Anyway, sir, if emergency vehicles are not able to pass through this parking area, does it cause a negative in the criteria? If the purpose is emergency access?
No. First of all, emergency access may be wanted at a time when the parking lot is completely devoid of cars. Secondly, the emergency service personnel do an amazing job of getting to and from the areas they need to. And I do not believe that the plan that's proposed would prevent emergency access from getting to any part of the site, because most of the site has already been approved by the Borough of Totowa. And the board in Totowa, just like this board, takes actions to approve public health, safety, and welfare. And if they thought it was a safety hazard, I do not believe that they would have approved it, and I don't think anything that we're proposing on this particular 16 or 17 stall parking lot would prevent or prohibit emergency services from accessing the site.
Okay. Sir, were you the planner of record in the Totowa application this year?
I attended one hearing. I offered testimony on one application in Totowa, on the property in Totowa this year.
Were there other applications in Totowa this year, or was it a one-night hearing?
I go to a lot of hearings. I don't remember if it was one night or 2 nights or 3 nights.
All right.
Next witness.
Sir, did you prepare a report for the Totowa application? I'm not asking him to rehear the total application. Sir, you're putting words in my mouth. It's not true. Okay, you didn't even hear my, okay, fine. So where I'm leading with this is, if this parking lot intensifies the use at the building, because my understanding from reading the resolution is they predicated the number of patrons on parking spaces. So by increasing the number of parking spaces, it's intensifying the use on the principal lot. So if there were fewer parking spaces, sir, would it reduce, if that's all true, which I believe you understand, since you were the planner of record, he attended, okay. Sir, what was the capacity in which you attended those hearings?
Now we go back.
Mr. Sue, are you going to continue on talking about Totowa, or are you going to discuss the parking area?
I am talking about the parking area, and I'm talking about the intensity of the use. If, in fact, sir, as I understand, the borough of Totowa, which he was part of that record, calculated the number of patrons permitted based on parking spaces. By increasing the number of parking spaces on this, with this lot, it will intensify the use in Totowa, which may have a negative impact on the neighbors.
Objection again, he's talking about intensifying use in Totowa, he's not talking about how
You
any
know.
of the question or any information he provided has any detrimental impact whatsoever
You know.
on the property in Patterson.
All right.
I'm going to ask once again, and his question is limited to the direct impact on Patterson property.
You know,
And I agree.
all right.
I would actually,
I'll do it on my direct then. All right,
I'm
no
going
other
to
questions at this
suggest-
time. Thank you.
I'm also going to suggest that Mr. Sue has taken this opportunity to speak more as a public comment. And I'm wondering if the board might consider finding that Mr. Sue has spoken as a member of the public, and perhaps he's done for the evening.
No, I'm not done for the evening, sir. I merely asked my questions, which I was frustrated I am not personally frustrated, but the professionals here, sir, yourself, the planner, applicant's attorney, which is fine if that's what they want to do. I'm being cut off from connecting this lot, which is completely connected to the principal use and reflects on its intensity. I'm not being able to enhance the record correctly or use those tools to question the planner. And I'm not allowed to use the Socratic method for asking questions.
That's right.
Effectively, sir,
That's
effectively, sir, I'm placing my objection, sir.
That's right, because you've spoken out of order and you've spoken out of turn, and you've ignored admonishments, and you've just kept talking and talking and talking out of order and out of turn.
Sir, you're
And
proposing
here you
that
go.
I am not allowed to speak anymore tonight. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, because I think that you...
But can you read my mind?
I think-
Do you know what's in my head, sir?
No, but I think you have hijacked your chance at cross-examination, and you have
Sir, you're going to
simply-
create a nullity if I cannot put on my presentation. The law is very bright in this matter. You create a circumstance where the board becomes the adversary of the public. And that's what you're doing. You're making the board my adversary, the adversary of the public. It seems that is the...
No, he is not.
Really, sir?
That's right.
Why don't you, let's hear it.
That's it, Gary,
you're
Gary.
done.
All right.
Gary.
I already said that I was concluded with my
Mr.
question.
Sue, thank you. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot.
The attorneys, we're going to close this case out and going to give you guys a new date. You're going to have to come back. Royal pain in the...
Chairman, I'm sorry, did you say we're stopping?
Yes, we're going to stop.
Well, is the applicant done? Mr. Rush, have you concluded, or?
Basically, I had no further witnesses. I wasn't planning to call the applicant himself. I know Mr. Paparazzi did indicate he had some questions
Yeah,
for him.
yes, we would like to hear the
So
applicant.
then we're still going to be calling the applicant then.
Okay.
Okay. February the 10th? February the 10th.
The date for the application of Fortress Holdings LLC, 324 Berkshire Ave, Block 1218, Lot 18, will be carried to February 10, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. Well, do you waive the statutory time requirements, Mr.
Yes.
the attorney?
Yes.
Mr. Rush? Thank you.
Obviously, notice is not necessary, correct?
It
Just
is
as adequate
not.
notice?
I am asking you again, Mr. Rush, do you waive statutory time requirements?
Yes, I've indicated.
Can you repeat what I just said?
Yes, we're waiving statutory requirement for.
Thank you very much. So this matter has been carried to February 10, 2022 at 7:30 p.m.
Can I speak, please? I'm sorry. I'm a resident here for 59 years. I live right on that street. He lives 2 blocks over.
We are no longer allowed to speak. The meeting has been carried. There is no reason why anyone should be speaking.
There's no further business in front of this board. The meeting's adjourned.
He's employing neighborhood people out of business.